With the new year, I wanted to go ahead and start something that I've wanted to start ever since I did my first video on conspiracy theories. I, like a lot of you, have always been fascinated by the dark and creepy world around us, by the evil that lurks in everyday places. I think this is something that touches at every human in some way, whether it's simply a love of horror movies or a love of true crime. And today I want to show you something that a lot of you probably haven't ever seen, which sheds some new light on the most famous, or infamous, mass murder in human history. When I look at the most dangerous and violent people in the world, I get chills, but not for the reason you think. When I see the face of Ted Bundy, I don't imagine the horrors that he inflicted on others. When I hear the devolution of John Wayne Gacy from child abuse to murder, then I view his smiling face and I am struck to the core with horror because of what he did, sure, but not by the thought of what lies behind those eyes. I am struck instead with terror from what lies on the surface. See Gacy here, and you see a laughing, charming, portly man who seems like the sort of fun and chubby friend or uncle who keeps you laughing at a party. Look at Bundy, and you see a handsome man whom you would probably imagine as the bad boy at the party, the college dropout who's picking up all the chicks and being silently envied by other men. Rodney Alcala is the confident and charismatic loner who is also a surprisingly good photographer, so charming and normal that he won the dating game. When I see the worst of humanity, what chills my blood and keeps me awake at night is how normal they look. There's no difference between me and Rodney Alcala, except what he did was something unimaginable. There's no difference between you and John Wayne Gacy, except his disgusting acts of violence and sexual deviance. But you might take comfort in the idea that these were psychopathic outliers whose brains didn't function correctly. Many of them even had head injuries as children. You might be able to sleep at night, knowing that deep down there is something that divides you from becoming like them. But I'm just not certain that that is the case. Seeing these photos, you too might understand what I mean. If you aren't familiar with these, you might see them as just regular photos of a group of military co-workers or friends in the country. Truth be told, that's exactly what it is. Friends enjoying the countryside, sunbathing, getting a breath of fresh air after a week of hard work. They are relaxing, casual. But as you look at their uniforms a little closer, you begin to understand what is so awful about these photos. These were the workers of Auschwitz. Although it isn't as new or recent as some other horrifying events in history, the Holocaust still plays in the minds of anyone who has ever studied it. The death of 6 million Jews, over 3 million Catholics, 1.8 million Polish civilians, 250,000 disabled people, 500,000 gypsies, almost 100,000 repeat offenders, thousands of gays, and an unknowable amount of political opponents and resistance activists were all caused by men and women like the ones you see here. They brutally tortured men, women, and sweet, innocent children. I'll never forget my first full realization of the horrors of the Holocaust. It was in sophomore year when we read Elie Wiesel's Night, the section of the book that talked about the Nazis using infants, precious little baby infants, as target practice. Made me burst into tears in the middle of my English class. I was not made fun of or mocked. Everyone knew, everyone understood, and I wasn't the only one that had that reaction. It's something that strikes a nerve deep in me and has always been a sort of a lifelong fascination as to how people could do this. And that is proof, if ever any was needed, that evil exists. Objective, unchangeable evil. Not some subjective morality. Objective evil. Not a vote that we all took as society, but something ingrained during our progression up the evolutionary scale, or given to us by a creator, whatever you want to call it. It is something that is objective. As clear and real as the laws of physics. 1 million people died at Auschwitz alone. And these were the people who did it. These are the smiling faces and happy days of some of history's most prolific murderers. Yet there are too many, and many are unknown. And so they will never receive the attention of Ted Bundy. If one person dies, it's a tragedy. If 1 million dies, it's a statistic. Yet we know that a plurality, if not a majority, of the people in this group photo had a direct hand in the murder of 1 million human beings. Some say we shouldn't even draw attention to these photos because it humanizes people who we should see as monsters, but I disagree. We have to see that the Nazis were not mustache-twirling villains or even psychopaths. They were regular people who became so caught up in a social justice cause that they were willing to kill for it. Most of us love to believe that we would be one of the people who sacrificed themselves, one of the people who lied, one of the people who kept Jews under our floorboards to protect them. We all like to think the best of ourselves and assume we would have been the hero in the situation. But when you look at the statistical reality of all the Germans who knew roughly what was going on, and yet went along to get along, then we all know the sad truth is that you and I probably would not have been one of those brave people. Does it scare you too? Does it scare you to know that the only reason that you have the morals you do come down to where and when you were born? Because it scares the hell out of me. They believed so strongly in the ideas of their social justice against a group of people whom their politicians claimed had wronged them, that they were willing to destroy their lives. They had been conditioned to see Jews or anyone else who disagreed with them as unhuman, and they thought violence was justified against them, whether or not the propaganda was even true. When I see the faces of these normal men and women, I don't see the faces of killers. I see my own face reflected back at me. I think you probably do too. And maybe that's the scariest thing of all.